Indigner House proudly presents The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper. This is book 1 in the StarWriters Trilogy. It is by Kay Savarese. Mary is an award-winning author born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She now lives in Florida. Her debut novel, Tigers Love Bubble Bath and Obsession Perfume, Who Knew?, is a contemporary spiritual mystery that has won over 4 national awards. So I think you're really going to enjoy this novel. Alice may have fallen through the looking glass and created a relationship with the Cheshire Cat, but it's 12-year-old Tyler who falls into the Toile Wallpaper and unwittingly bonds with 13 cats. Tyler must rescue the girl of his dreams or forever be imprisoned inside the wallpaper of time while running from an evil wizard. So sit back and enjoy The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper. We'll read the first 2 chapters, okay? The Toile currently has 2 reviews. The first one is from Diane Donovan, Midwest Review, and she says, Savarese is skilled at contrasting medieval and modern worlds, flowing between them in a manner that is enlightening and creates no confusion in the transition process, which creates a seamless story based not just on 1 or 2 main characters, but a host of special interests and objectives. Fantasy fans of high school age and older who look for a blend of mystery, history, and spellbinding intrigue will relish the journey and discoveries which defy time, space, and death. It's a complex story that comes alive and is satisfyingly unpredictable and firmly rooted in strong characters. A story that is hard to put down. The second one is from the U.S. Review of Books. Savarese's novel is an intensive and original portal fantasy that avoids the genre's most overused cliches. At moments, the story evokes Doctor Who and A Wrinkle in Time. Tyler is a brainy kid with a love of physics. Though the plot is unlike anything the reader is likely to have read, Savarese piles incident upon incident, and readers who enjoy a quirky science fiction story with magic and a hint of romance will find much here to entertain. Prologue. It is said, where evil rages, hope prevails. This is not about evil, for hope shall find a way. He watched as the dark shadows swirled across the room. A wind as strong as a summer tornado spun, and yet moved nothing. Dante hid in the shadows, and the sound of squalls raged through his ears. He inched his way toward the massive windows and darted behind the heavy drapery. His heart raced, and he gasped when shards of light flashed through the room and threatened his reality. When a lightning bolt shattered, he winced and stepped deeper into the folds of the fabric. Standing in the middle of the study, a boy held tightly to a girl in his arms. Dante wanted to help them, but how? The evil man's robe glimmered with each wave of his arm. Dante watched in horror as the man threw the sheets of paper onto the floor. His long golden fingernails glowed in the dim light. As the pages floated, each piece crawled toward the couple as if alive. Awkward sounds filled Dante's ears, while ghost-like buildings hovered through the air as if they were nothing more than a wisp of smoke. Now a medieval scene flashed before his eyes, and the curtains vibrated in his hands. A flicker of an olive tree, and then a farmhouse, and then a vineyard, and... Are those sheep? Dante tried to inch closer, but his feet refused to move. He was glued in place behind the drapes. The ghostly objects disappeared into the paper, and he trembled in terror. The shadows formed into a miniature print, each arranging itself according to the direction of the evil man. The man was painting a distressing scene through the movement of his symphonic hands. The wizard swiped along the floor, and the girl was jerked into the air. She hovered for only a moment before spinning as easily as a spinning wheel. Then as if no friction ever existed, the girl screamed, and the wind sucked her into the cloth paper. The girl was gone. Chapter 1. It is said, some loves are linked through time. This is not such love, but it could be. Present day. Sprinting to the most romantic bridge in all of Italy, the Ponte Vecchio, Tyler stopped to catch his breath. He didn't have much time. Gotta get to the middle. Handsome and dressed in a black tux, the young American pushed his way through the daunting crowd. Tyler scanned across the anxious eyes of the loving couples. Men were smiling at women, and the women glaring back as if their hearts were being silently stolen. Tyler spotted a single head of silver. There didn't seem to be anyone standing next to the old man. Leaning into the tangled mass of arms and legs, Tyler pushed his way through. Each step took him closer to the wavy silver lines that were only a few feet away. An old Italian man leaned cautiously over the stone railing and stared out at the swirling and darkening water. His yellow eyes seemed to reflect the world as if they'd seen more than they'd ever had wanted to. Tyler peered through his fingers that shielded his eyes as the bright sun threatened to cloud his vision. The man, dressed in a creamy linen suit, looked frail but content. His thin frame allowed his clothes to drape across his body as if they were several sizes too large. Could that be him? Tyler Charles checked his watch. It was just a little after 3 on that bright Saturday afternoon. He sighed. Phew, made it. He squeezed between 2 couples and pushed forward. To divulge his secret to a complete stranger felt outrageously crazy. His stomach tightened and his hands shook. "Scusi me," Tyler sighed and brushed his dark hair from his eyes. I'm supposed to talk to you." Glancing around at the loving couples, Tyler's heart pounded. He adjusted his pants before looking down at his tux. Shaking his head, he thought about her, then pushed the thought from his mind. "I'm no stranger to love," Tyler said, now also looking at the water. "I never felt loved before. Well, from my mom, but when it comes to women, you know what I mean." The man remained quiet. "Probably doesn't understand a word I'm saying." Tyler pushed back from the railing. "Okay, I'll admit it. Had a couple of girls throughout the years, maybe several." The old man nodded at Tyler. "Fine, 5. Had a total of 5 lovers. Thought that maybe, just maybe, I could stay in love this time." The old man looked over at a couple who were kissing. "At least one should have lasted. Was more of a like, actually." The old man yawned. Well, I convinced my fiancé that we should marry here in Florence." Tyler shifted his stance. Again, he tugged at his pants. "Not my fault. I thought I had it this time. You know, the real deal." The old Italian smiled. Tyler glanced across the river at the Floretian buildings. All seemed calm and inviting. However, Tyler felt anything but invited. "Now," Tyler sighed, "now she's my ex-fiancée." Again the man looked over at a kissing couple. "My God, I just left her standing there in that room, all by herself. I couldn't face her." Cupping a hand over his mouth, Tyler moaned, "Oh, I let her down. I let everybody down. My family, our friends." Their gaze locked, and Tyler felt something odd race through him. "Does he even understand me?" The old man looked deeply into Tyler's eyes. Tyler couldn't move. Tyler grinned. I wear contacts." The old man squinted. "Maybe my brown eyes give me a brown disposition." The old man turned his attention back to the water and rested his arms on the railing. "What the hell?" He shook his head. "I'm making a fool of myself." Tyler glanced over his shoulder as several couples passed, giving him a bird's-eye view of a metal gate that was covered in locks of various shapes and sizes. Tyler wiped the sweat from his brow and frowned. He had seen those locks years earlier, 15 to be exact. He was only 12. Damn! A tear fell and a memory flooded his vision. The more things change, the more they actually stay the same. A waiter had said that to him once, and now the words flew past Tyler's lips. Those locks are for lovers. They toss the keys into the river to sail their fate. Lily's beautiful eyes flashed before him. Tyler took a step back. His heart pounded, and the pain from losing her filled his soul. Only once had he ever truly felt in love, and he was only 12. Way too young to understand the whys. Reaching out, Tyler touched the edge of the old man's linen suit that rested on the old brick. The touch felt real, subtle. He jerked away his arm. "Maybe it was the curse," Tyler said, holding back a sob. 15 years ago, that's when I first met her. I was just a kid, but I grew to love her." Tyler raised his hand and pushed his hair from his eyes. "I know what I must do." The old man glanced at him. "I've got to find the girl in the Toile Wallpaper. I have to go back." The old man's suit glinted in the afternoon sun. "Back to the beginning." Standing together, the man wearing cream and Tyler wearing black stared out together at the ancient architecture. The air cooled as the clouds rode across the sky. Loosening his black bow tie, Tyler cringed. "I was only 12, and—" The old man rested on the stone bridge and frowned. "I had come here with my aunt. We were supposed to be at camp." Chapter 2. It is said, too many cooks spoil the broth. And this is not about the cooking, but rather the brothing. 15 years ago, standing in the kitchen of her Massachusetts home, Elise Charles scowled at her younger sister. Both women with long dark hair, flawless skin, and brown eyes could practically be clones of each other. Only their personalities distinguished the two. Elise, with her anxieties, always seemed to grow tense whenever Megan was around, and Megan, with a more practical outlook on life, always seemed to be either ignoring or antagonizing her older sister. "He's a nerd like his dad. So what?" Elise laughed. "He'll probably be working in the scientific community someday. All nerds work in the scientific community, don't they?" "Tyler's obsessed with computers," Megan replied. "And he's a bookworm." Elise shoved her passport into her travel bag and frowned. "You know, that's not what I mean," Megan smirked. Elise grabbed her bag and dropped it on the floor. "He has no friends," Megan added. "Why? Because he'd rather be with a book, and he never leaves his room. Why? Because he's always on that stupid computer." Elise turned away. "And your point?" "I'm just saying it's not healthy, and it's probably not safe having a computer in his room. Who knows what he's doing on it? Could be researching bombs or something worse." "What are you talking about?" Elise turned and glared at her sister. "You know something I don't?" Megan took a step back. "No." "Then don't be ridiculous." Elise felt her face flush. "He's just deep into physics right now, and we've already blocked the inappropriate sites." "I don't know. And that's why, my dear sis, Tyler's going to camp for the next 2 weeks. He'll be forced to make friends, and he's in the fresh air and away from his computer." Megan shrugged. Forcing a smile, Elise launched into her rehearsed speech. "That's why you're the best little sister in the world. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you driving him to camp. Maine's not a short trip. I'd never catch my flight in time." "Danny will be surprised," Megan said. "I can't wait. Besides, I need a vacation. We've been working nonstop, and we could use some alone time." "Will the conference be over by the time you get there?" Elise shook her head. Her thoughts bubbled, and if she said anything more, she'd probably start a fight. Keeping her mouth shut was usually the best choice. "Who are you to tell me how to raise my only child? You're not married or in a relationship." Elise mumbled through her thoughts and chanted her mantra. "She's doing me a favor. She's doing me a favor." Wrapping 6 of his dad's physics books Inside his t-shirts, 12-year-old Tyler shoved the disheveled clothing into his backpack. His camp trunk had already been picked up several days ago, and of course his mom had found the books and pulled them out. "Ty, get those out of there," his mother had yelled. Never before had he seen her so angry. "You're going to have a ball," she said. Yeah, right, he thought. His stomach churned at the idea of having to make new friends. He had none here, so why would he have any there? Camp Wamtucket, a place secluded somewhere in northern Maine, was not a place he wanted to be. Girls were not a part of his life, and neither were boys. Keeping his nose inside a book was much safer. Physics was his comfort zone, not to mention it was fun. Some day he would discover something new, and then his name would be displayed to the world. However, something else had his name on it right now, and not something he wanted. Peeking out his window, his muscles tightened. There stood his nemesis, Kevin Smithers, the boy who wore oversized red sneakers as his trademark. Kevin bullied him all through gym. Always seemed as if the teacher turned her back at just the right moment. No one ever came to Ty's rescue. Everyone feared Kevin just as much as he did, but it was Tyler that Kevin had chosen as his punching bag. Yesterday, the last day of school, Tyler finally fought back. Needing to use the bathroom, Tyler froze when he spotted the big and barely tied red sneakers poking out from under the stall. Now it was just the two of them, mano a mano. Kevin stepped out and cracked his knuckles and laughed. "Ha, well, poopy head, gonna be cool giving you a proper farewell. Then we'll start all over again next year." Tyler balled up his fists and waited. A little voice whispered, "Hit him first." Tyler swung at the huge boy. Instead of his knuckles hitting skin, his fingernails slid across the now startled face. Kevin fell back on his butt. "Ass! You're mine, dude!" Kevin yelled, wiping the blood from his cheek. Tyler ran and smiled all the way home. However, he wasn't smiling now. Kevin was pacing panther-like in front of his house. Taking in a deep breath, Tyler snickered. In half an hour, he'd be on his way to someplace unknown. Therefore, he could dip down in the front seat of Aunt Meg's car, and Kevin would never see him, and the idiot would probably pace the block all night. Sitting at his computer, Tyler waited. His document had to finish downloading and printing before he left. Time was running out. The site had been blocked by his parents, but Tyler knew how to break through the firewall. "Okay, Meg," Elise said, dropping another bag at the door. "It's a 3-hour drive. You should arrive around noon. Then 2.5 hours back to the airport. Even with heavy traffic, there's plenty of time." "I'm just dropping him off, right? Nothing else? I can't miss my flight in Boston." "You'll be fine. Mine leaves in 3 hours. Yours isn't until tonight." "My boss made the arrangements," Meg sighed. "It's an important project. I can't be dealing with head problems right now." Elise stared at her and frowned. "Okay, I'll just drop him off." Elise drew an imaginary X on her heart just like she did when they were kids. "I promise, his camp counselor will be waiting for you." Meg sighed again. "Honest!" The doorbell rang. "Now who could that be?" Elise asked. Megan picked up the newspaper from off the counter and laughed. "This is front page news. Pig flu making its way through the Northeast. Is this a joke? Am I missing something about pigs getting the flu?" She raised her voice so Elise could hear. "Apparently it is, making the front page and all." Elise opened the front door. "I'm missing a lot lately," Megan yelled back. Elise dragged a husky-built boy with taffy brown hair into the kitchen. He smiled, and the red scrape on his cheek darkened. "Meg, I want you to meet Tyler's friend." Elise smirked. "From school. His name's Kevin." "Hi, Kevin," Megan said. "Nice to see Ty has a friend." She leaned over and whispered to her sister. "At least one." Kevin nodded. Frowning, Elise coughed. "You can go right up. Tyler's room is the first on the right." "Thank you, Mrs. Charles." Kevin replied, making a fist. Shutting down his computer, Tyler was already missing it. It's all about camaraderie and the great outdoors, Ty, not about computers, his mom had said every time he protested. He shook off the odd feeling that was suddenly creeping up his back and glanced out his window. No sign of Kevin out front. He probably went home. Tyler shoved the printed report of the downloaded article into his backpack. He smiled, knowing where he had hidden the physics books. His mother's words echoed up from downstairs. Ty, your friend Kevin is on his way up. Tyler's mind twirled. Watching the knob turn, Tyler held his breath. His heart raced. He jumped at the door just in time to push it closed. Kevin pushed back from the other side. I know you're in there, Kevin whispered. Open up. Get what's coming to ya. Elise and Megan flinched when a loud thump grabbed their attention. What's going on? Elise peeked out the living room window. Everything appeared quiet. I'll get Ty ready to go. I'll wait in the car, Megan said. Have a wonderful vacation with Danny. I owe you one, Elise replied. No problem. What else are little sisters for? Ty, where's Kevin? Elise asked. He had to go. Really? Elise glanced around. I didn't see him leave. That's because he didn't leave, for Kevin had forced his way into Tyler's bedroom. The boys danced back and forth, tossing insults at each other. Hold still so I can belt ya! Kevin lunged at Tyler. Tyler reached for his only weapon, his backpack. He flung it at the boy, and it landed near the open window. Tyler ran to grab it for another pass. Kevin reached out for him, and instead of taking a step, Kevin's foot entangled in the strap of the heavy book bag. Tyler's old physics books helped to fling the boy through the window. Hey! Kevin yelled and flailed as he dropped toward the hardened ground. Jumping up and down, Tyler yelped, Yes! Tyler peeked out the window and stared down at the panting Kevin Smithers. He waved and laughed at the boy as the boy slowly rolled off the crushed bushes. Tyler sat his backpack on his bed. Elise closed the window and smiled. Okay, time to go. Aunt Meg's in the car. Why can't I go with you, Mom? Tyler lowered his head. Because you can't. You'll have a great time at camp. Tyler frowned, handing him the required paperwork. His mother hugged him in tight. Love you, Ty. Dad and I will pick you up in 2 weeks. Mom kissed him on his cheek, steering clear of his rimless glasses. Love you too, Mom. Grabbing his book bag, he shoved the documents into a side pocket. As his aunt drove him down the street, Tyler stared out the window. Hey, Ty, there's your friend Kevin. Want to say goodbye? I can pull over. Looks like he's limping. No. We already said our goodbyes. Tyler waved at Kevin. He smiled, then he noticed the new red scratch on the boy's face. Then he thought of the 7th grade, and his smile disappeared. Elise left with suitcase and travel bag. She smiled at the thought of surprising her husband. Since they hadn't parted on such good terms, she prayed that their private time together would change everything. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the first couple of chapters of The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper. You can pre-order your copy. Probably by Monday you'll be able to do the pre-order, and then it'll be available shortly thereafter that. So make sure you go up to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, put your pre-order in today, and as always, leave your comments below, and if you subscribe, then you'll know exactly when we put up another video for you to get an introduction into our books. And as always, if you are an author and you want to be considered, just go up to our website at indignorhouse.com, and there's a little button there you can push for submissions, or you can send it to submissions@indignorhouse.com. And We have a brand new writing competition going on out there. All the information is on the Indigner House, so please go up, read about it, and put something in because it's worth up to $500 in publication. You can't miss that. So anyway, we'll see you again on the next novel. Talk to you soon. This is Lynn signing out. Bye.